Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining in today for the second session of Coach's Corner. Before we get started, I would like to inform you all that I would be recording this session and using it on social media. So if in case any of you have any reservations against it, please let me know. Otherwise, we will get started immediately. Okay. Debashish, thanks a lot. Thank you for agreeing to be a panelist on our second session of this Coach's Corner. As you're aware, Coach's Corner is something that we have started off to provide an experiential learning for coaches so that they can get perspectives from experienced coaches as well as industry leaders in terms of what is expected of them from coaches. So, ladies and gentlemen, Debashish is a HR professional. Has got about 18 plus years of experience in managing end-to-end functions in HR. He is currently the vice president and country HR head for Berkadia. He's also a Marshall Goldsmith certified executive and teams coach and a certified practitioner of several behavioral and personality assessment tools. So he's been awarded two of the most prestigious HR credentials in the world, a senior certified professional from Society of Human Resources, and a global talent management leader from Talent Management Institute. Very recently, the Silicon India magazine has recognized him as one of the top 10 promising HR leaders of 2020. So welcome on board, Debashish. Thanks a lot for coming over.
No, Aditya, I should thank you for having me. I think it's a wonderful platform, and thank you for this opportunity.
Glad to have you, Debashish. So, before we get started, can you please walk us through with your career path, career progression as to how the journey has been?
Sure, Aditya. So it has been, I would say, a bit of an unconventional career journey. So my story is not that of somebody who studied MBA in HR in a business school and then slowly, and steadily moved up the career ladder to where I am today. I actually studied hotel management after my 12th standard and started off in the hospitality industry. In fact, my first job was that of a waiter in a small hotel in Bhubaneswar. So I was in hospitality for about 2 years and really learned a lot there. I mean, this industry teaches you a lot about customer service, about managing stress, interpersonal skills, among many other things. So I'm very happy that I at the very beginning of my career, I could learn all those management skills. So hospitality was like the first phase of my career. The second phase was when I joined GE Capital International Services, a GE company back in 2001, when the BPO industry was taking its baby steps, if I would say so. In GE, I did a pure play, quote unquote, call center role of making collection calls to customers based out of US. And I did well in that role. I got my promotions on time and became a team leader. But something interesting happened very early in my career with GE when I was really intrigued and got fascinated by what we do in the human resources department in particular. I fell in love with the idea of hiring and then onboarding, rewards and recognition, performance management, and so on and so forth. And I felt that this is something I want to do as a long-term career option. So then around 5 years after I joined GE, it had become Genpact by then. I got this opportunity to move to HR. And when I got the opportunity, I obviously grabbed it with both hands. And that's when the third phase of my career started, the phase of the last 15, 16 years of in human resources. And I must say that, I have thoroughly enjoyed this ride so far. So that's briefly about my career, Aditya. I mean, it has not been a proverbial, career ladder that you climbed.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I started with the ladder trying to get to the top, but I realized over the years that getting at the end of the ladder was not sometimes it is not about moving up is what your progress is, right? I sometimes had to back down a few steps to take the right opportunities, like my move from hospitality to BPO. Um, Sometimes I believe more interestingly, uh, I realized that I might be in the wrong ladder when I realized that, I really have to take the different ladder, which is the HR ladder, because this is what my passion is. So that way, I think overall the concept of career ladders, in a way, I found it very, very misleading. And because I don't think the way I see it and many other careers I've seen, it is not really unidirectional. So, but again, it has been in a way a bit unconventional the way I built my career.
Cool, cool. That's a pretty interesting journey. Lot of shift, and I'm sure there's a lot of learning with every shift.
Absolutely, yes.
Cool. So I want to bring us back to the topic that we are all here for. So what I want to understand from you, being a HR leader, with X number of years in large organizations, what are the common challenges that you have seen that many leaders face? And that's one part of the question. And the other part of the question is, how aware are these leaders of the challenges that they are facing?
Okay. Um, I think, you know, the first part of the question, what I meant was, is more, also dependent on the variety of factors, like which industry you belong to, the marketplace, the consumer behavior, competition, talent, technology, many things. And these days, again, I guess how the world is going to be evolving post the pandemic, that I believe a lot of leaders are trying to anticipate those challenges. I would say anticipate because I am not sure everybody knows what the challenges would be. So that way, I think it depends from industry to industry, situation, the maturity of the organization and the industry as well. But your second question, it is very interesting when you said, are the leaders aware? I think that is what you mentioned, right? Are they aware of the challenges? Um, I think good leaders or great leaders are very self-aware. And understanding of any challenges, I think, start from that awareness. When you're more self-aware, then you become aware of everything else, right? So at least I know the leaders who are good or great, they are aware of what they are not aware. And that is something I've seen very consistently of all good leaders. When I speak to these leaders, um, they always tell me things like, Dave, I don't know. Or they tell me things like, Dave, I think this is the problem, but I'm not 100% sure. What do you think? Now, they are willing to ask those questions, rather than just exuding that confidence of that they have all the answers. And they're always people who are willing to learn. They are not hesitant to admit their mistakes and failures. They display their vulnerabilities in the presence of everyone, even if in the presence of, that means in the presence of people who are so-called at the bottom of the pyramid, right? I think these qualities are hallmark of true leadership, and something that makes these leaders very, very self-aware. So I think more than that is why I think they are more aware of the challenges, because of the fact that they come from a very high level of self-awareness. I don't know if I've answered your question, Aditya.
You've done it very beautifully. In fact, the statement that you made, which is good leaders are aware of what they are not aware, that's very powerful, very powerful. And the second thing that you said, and I quite resonate with it, which is they are not hesitant to display their vulnerabilities, which also kind of helps them build trust with their teams also.
Very
So
true.
fantastic points there. Before I move on to the next question, I just want to pause and see if any of the participants have any questions to ask.
No, Aditya, continue. I think we are
Thank you, Chiru.
on the
And this is going to be an interactive session, so feel free to put your hand up or unmute yourself and ask the question. Don't hesitate, because it's an open forum. Okay. All right. So the next one that I want to understand from you is, when would organizations recommend their leaders to work with a coach?
I think that's a great question, and so I have some, I think, certain perspective to it, Aditya. When if I am the leader of the organization, and when do I recommend when somebody should work with a coach or not, right? That's the question. I think fundamentally, I don't think that organizations should even recommend, quote unquote, recommend their leaders to work with a coach. The reason I say this is because oftentimes recommendations, when not done correctly, could appear as an indirect mandate, especially if it's coming from a leader, right? Now, let me explain that by an example. Suppose, Aditya, you work with me, and I'm your boss, or I'm your HR head, and you are part of Berkadia, and I tell you, suppose that one day I come to you and say, Aditya, I see that you are struggling with your say conflict management style, and despite our conversations, I don't see much change happening. I don't think there's much improvement happening. So what you have done is that in Berkadia, we have empaneled with this external coach, Kingshuk Ganguly. And I strongly recommend that you work with Kingshuk on this. Here is Kingshuk's number. He's waiting for your call. Now, what happens in this case is that, even though I'm recommending, but if you think about it, am I really recommending, or I'm telling?
Yeah.
All right. And even if you decide after the conversation, Aditya, that, well, you'll work with Kingshuk, I doubt at the end of the program how effective will that be, because you might not be completely sold into it. I think because of that, instead of recommending, what I generally believe and what I generally tend to do is that I would rather have the organizations leave the decision to the coachee himself or herself, especially when the coachee is a senior leader. So if you're a senior leader, Aditya, then I would not even recommend or tell you, as I mentioned. The way I see it, the role of the organization is to create a platform of coaching, a program of coaching as a means of development, enroll some great coaches into it, right? And let the leader know the coach, and let the leader know that, let Aditya know there is a coach available for him as a resource, right? Now, it might at best nudge you to be a part of the program, right? But the decision whether to be a part of it should be completely yours and completely voluntary. You see, coaching is, the way I see it, again, is one of the ways of improving performance. It is not the only way, right? It is one of the very good ways, but not the only way. Let the leader decide what works best for him. As an HR function, as an HR head, my job will be that when we design coaching program, this is one thing that we should keep in mind, right? The only exception, the last point I would make is that the only exception to that rule, as I mentioned, recommending, is that I can sometimes recommend, and it will work only when you and I, as a manager, a supervisor, as a manager, HR head, have a completely trusted relationship. And I speak to you from the vantage point of somebody who cares for you, somebody is concerned about you, and somebody who has genuine interest in your development. if that happens, right, that's the only time I'll probably take the liberty of recommending a coach for you. Otherwise, it should be totally your decision. That's the way I see it.
Fantastic point. So I think the recommendation would probably chip in when there is trust already built in the relationship.
That is right.
Otherwise,
that's so fundamental. Yes.
Yeah. True. Great. Fantastic point. Any questions? After every question, I would want to check with the participants if they have any question before I move on to the next one. Okay, I would take silence as no in this case. So when you are getting coaches empaneled, do you go through any decision point as to should we have somebody who's within the organization who would be a coach? Do you want to go for a full-time employee coach as an employee as opposed to empaneling somebody external? That internal external decision, how do you go with it?
That's again a great question, Aditya. It's not an easy decision, I would say. And I don't think I have really figured that out, to be honest with you. In the broad sense, I see coaching is a long-term process. Obviously, it does not give any quick fix. It's not a magic potion or a quick thing that can happen with someone. So it is a long-drawn process that requires, I think, 4 things. One is that the skills of the coach, the time commitment, the commitment of the coach, and the motivation itself. And I think this works from both the sides. It is important for the coach and the coachee as well, especially on the time and commitment and motivation. Both the coach and coachee should be completely part of it. Skills of coaching, when it comes, it is very unique to the coach that brings in the coaching skills, I meant. As an HR leader, okay, I generally start with the intent of looking internally first, an internal employee who can be the coach. Now, in fact, in the last 2 decades, I have worked with some very, very successful professionals, senior guys who also are amazing coaches, and they find time and energy and effort to do the coaching despite their schedule, right? So if I find that internally I have leaders who have the coaching skills, who are not only successful but who have the coaching skills, I'm like kind of focus on that word skills, because I think coaching is a skill that you need to build over a period of time. But somebody who has a skill, somebody who can take time out from their crazy schedule to dedicate time for coaching, someone internally who can stay motivated and stay committed for the long haul. I would love to have somebody internal to do a coaching for me. But again, in the last 20 years, the fact of the matter is that I have discovered that it is very hard to find such a person, Aditya. That is why, more often than not, I have gone for an external coach. Okay. The one thing I would like to add is that, so again, I look internally, and when I don't have options, then I go external, and mostly I have worked with external coaches because of the challenges I mentioned. But I want to also add that when the organization goes for an external coach, it also needs to think creatively and see how in the learning design it can bring in the flavor of internal coaches. Because sometimes there could be some great coaches, but because of paucity of time and commitment, they might not be able to rightly so give the time to you, right? So, but you want to leverage that skill as well from your senior leaders internally, right? So that has to be part of the coaching, the learning design as far as the NLA team is concerned. For example, I'll give you an example of Berkadia. We work with external coaches, and at the same time, we have an awesome platform called Leaders and Coaches. Now, these are very short duration highly interactive sessions hosted by senior leaders who really share their experiences and perspectives on a certain topic, right? What they do really is they bring in their personal stories, and more importantly, I think, they also bring in the perspective of Berkadia's values and culture, and what would have been right or wrong in such situations, keeping our culture in mind, and therefore these sessions become more powerful and more impactful. So while it is it is very important to work with external coaches, and there's some great results I have seen while working with external coaches, right? But I believe that L&D teams again should think creatively and bring the best of both worlds, internal and external, and this should go typically hand in hand.
So a balance is what you're talking about, basically.
Yes. I would say that the balance is not 50-50. If I don't know if I can give a number, but I think it should be 80-20 or 85-15. 80 could be the external coach because they have that skill, energy, time, motivation to do it.
Yeah.
15% should be as a part of the design. You must involve the senior HR and senior leaders of the organization. This is very, very impactful, and I've seen that happening.
Okay. Fantastic. Again, I would like to take a pause to see if any questions from the participants.
Yes, Aditya, good evening.
Okay. Yeah, sure, go ahead. I'll take the next one.
Okay. Aditya, are you able to hear me?
Yes, please go on.
Oh, okay, sorry about my network. Good evening, everyone, and Debashish, very happy to see you and on this platform to connect with you. It's a very proud moment and a very interesting topic. I definitely the fact that internal coach or external coach and the way you have mentioned the flavor of internal coach should be there is very key. And this is what I have discovered in my experience, that the coach should understand the organizational dynamics very well. Okay. And then only he can make that impact. Okay. And at the same time, when Debashish, you said that the leader should play that hat, maybe to 10 to 15%. Definitely, if you have, I came across a Gallup study wherein it mentioned that the team's transformation largely depends on the manager, and feedback is one model, but at the same time, coaching is one of the again an intervention. The manager or the leader should wear that hat, and he should be able to do that part. Then only you can make that impact in the organization. But yes, it's a skill thing, and it's very key in today's scenario for the organizations and the team members to be successful. So here again, you definitely don't find that time, and again, you want that continuity. But at the same time, we have to identify as HR leaders. We have to identify those people, and we have to work with them, because the leaders are the pillars of the organization, and that will help the organization be successful. Thank you.
Great.
Great
That's
point.
very good add. Yeah. And
yeah, so Aditya, one point here. This is Amit.
Yeah, Amit, please go.
This is Amit. Yeah, so I've been a business leader for many years, and been from the other side when we had HR team, HR folks kind of collaborating with us. So I would feel that if I were to be coached, I would be more comfortable with a person, a very senior leader, maybe who's retired from the organization, and who, as someone mentioned, who knows the DNA of the company, the systems and processes, or even from the same industry. Because what really happens is that I'm more comfortable with the person. And then I think this is one thing that will make the process of coaching more acceptable to the coachee. And second is that, the person who is getting coached should be comfortable with the person who is going to coach him. I think that kind of chemistry is extremely important, by the correct definition of coaching, when you're making the person self-aware and, getting him aware of there's options available. So I think it is very, very important that the chemistry between the coach and the coachee is there, and it's very good, so that the process is going to be very effective.
True.
Absolutely, Amit. I totally and agree with you. I would try to give an example. So I have been bothering Debashish on and off throughout the year, and he is an industry leader. He is senior to me, and I connect with him often, and that is where my chemistry is there. And again, Debashish, you also spoke about we had spoken about the trust part. So there should be absolute trust also out there. So these 2 points I would like to put forward. Thank you.
Great.
Sure.
Fantastic points. Yeah. And I mean, I completely understand where both Amit and
There's one more point, Aditya. What I would feel is that we always have this concept of train the trainer concept, right? In organizations all across wherever I work. So
yeah.
why don't we have a concept of coach the coach? Where the person is actually going to be coached. Why don't we actually commoditize coaching? So the process of coaching is actually ingrained in the entire organization. So it's like when you get into an organization, you say, okay, fine. At some organizations, you assign mentors. You say, okay, this guy is your mentor or whatever it is. Why don't we have kind of a culture where you coach the coaches and then make them responsible for coaching the juniors or people who actually come into the organizations? I think that will open up the entire thing about coaching, because today if you walk into an organization, they don't know what coaching is all about, and tomorrow I say, boss, you're going to be a coach from tomorrow, that person is going to be very apprehensive about it.
Yeah.
So if you want to really do that, I think it's important to commoditize the entire concept of coaching within organizations.
True, Amit. True.
Yeah, and I agree with Amit there. I think he's made an excellent point. And I think it's slowly happening, building a tribe of coaches within organizations we can build a culture of coaching. I think it's slowly happening there. And it's a serious business, I mean, it takes time to build that capability. It is not a technical skill that is there. So a lot of investment from the organization is to happen. But that is where I think some of the good companies are heading towards.
True. In fact, a lot of leadership trainings, to Debashish's point and into what Amit was talking about, they involve fundamentals of coaching and various aspects of coaching. They also simplify models like Grow model and teach it to some of the senior leaders so that they can go about coaching the people. But again, at the same time, what Debashish was talking about, the 4 aspects, which is the skill, commitment, time, and motivation. If we look at all these, they might be the 3 aspects, but time is one aspect which would probably become an impediment for a lot of the leaders to become serious coaches within the organization. And unless and until they practice it as a skill doesn't really develop. So that's where the external coaches come into play when it comes to bringing in that balance. I mean, balance not from a 50-50 standpoint, but yeah, to bring in that. Great points.
I have a point out here.
Sure.
Sorry if I can continue.
Sure.
While whatever Amit said, commoditizing the coaching part, I agree to some extent, not to a larger extent. Why? Because this is one of the interventions. Okay, and if you see at the junior level or at the mid level, mostly skill development or mentoring helps. Okay, coaching is the next level. When you have achieved these 2 levels, then the coaching part comes, and this is where maybe the senior people come into this boat, and again you have to work with them. And this is my real-time experience. So when I was looking at recently, I was looking at coaching as an intervention. Then I realized, no, coaching is a later part. Right now, I have a skill issue. I need to do deep skilling. And again, I know some bit of mentoring is required. Okay. And personally, also, in my career, I felt that okay, these are 2 things which is required, and then coaching comes at an advanced level. So and again, it's a matter of investment and time also. Not every organization has that part, but definitely it is significant. But in terms of commoditizing, I have a slightly different view, because this will cater to a particular segment only out here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. If we don't have any questions, I'll move on to the next one that I have written on. So how would you go about identifying the right individual or individuals who would be working with you as a coach if you as an organization have decided to go with a few external coaches?
Okay, I think first thing is to really clearly define what I want to achieve as a part of coaching, and from that coach. Oftentimes, Aditya, we, including me, we have not done a great job in really defining what we really need. What would success look like at the end of 6 months or 1 year? What do I want to achieve, right? First of all, it is very important to define that, okay, and then start the process of finding the right person, because you're talking about selecting somebody, identifying a coach, right? So it's like you go through a selection process. So that need identification, how to define success is very important. And frankly, I can't claim that I figured out a foolproof method of identifying a ideal coach from organization, but there are a few things I do look at, right? And this is it's a part of the selection process, not somebody who has already joined, so who can build the trust or not. There are some assumptions I have that the person will be able to build trust and so on and so forth, right? And knows the skills and everything. So I think the one thing that I look at is definitely the person's credentials and certifications. Now, that does not mean that I would only hire somebody who's a PCC or an MCC. Just because Debashish is a Marshall Goldsmith certified coach does not make Debashish a great coach, right? What it means to me, it means that it sends a signal that this person, this particular coach, is invested in his own development. He has hustled to learn this thing. It's a skill that he has developed, right? Secondly, a certification, any certification for the matter, Aditya, trains us on certain structured process, for the lack of better word, right? To me, the knowledge of a structure is in coaching, or like any skill, is very important. Again, a good coach does not feel constrained by a structure. I want to make it very, very clear. Structure does not constrain you. But the structure actually makes that good coach aware then when it is time to step aside from the structure for a specific intervention. So you have to be aware of certain structures, some methods, some framework which is tried and tested. This is very important. So you can say that in that respect, I'm looking for a Rahul Dravid, right? Someone who's solid, someone who's technically sound, but at times who can also open the innings and do wicket keeping as and when needed, right? The next thing is probably that, when I'm as an HR leader going through a selection process, is that I need to know what is the unique and the personal coaching style of that coach, right? This is where I'm looking for Virender Sehwag, right? If I give an example of cricket again, this coach, by the way, can be as effective as the Rahul Dravid style coach, but can have a specific coaching style, which is his structure, which has become his own structure, a structure that might not be a conventional one, but something that works for him and for the coaching. Something that comes natural to him. It's like Sehwag hitting a 6 to get to his triple century. Nobody does that apart from Sehwag. So it is his style, right? So I would look at that as well. That what is his or her personal style. The third thing is, I guess, it is very important. And again, some of you have, both Amit and Ahmed has alluded to that, is about, and it's a critical component for any selection process, is the culture fitment. The coach would be spending a lot of personal time having one-on-one discussions with the leaders of an organization. So it is very important to get the culture fitment right? Else we don't work. Because what I don't want is a Greg Chappell for my cricket team. Okay, great coach, but not the right culture fit. Last but not the least, sometimes I do call up people for the references. Sometimes the phone calls, if somebody has worked with a coach and can give give feedback to me, that also helps. But I think it's a combination. It's not an easy job to select a good coach. A combination of the person's what structure, and also what is his personal style, what is the culture fitment that he brings in, and plus some of the references. So that's typically the process, I follow while going for a coach.
Great, great. In fact, your point around a good coach doesn't feel constrained by a structure. That's a very valid point, because as I speak to a few coaches, they feel uncomfortable when a structure is thrown at them or when they have to follow a structure. But then the fact that you learn the structure, you build your own style, and then you grow over the structure. That's very important.
And true, and this is my personal view. I think it's the biggest fallacies of coaching. As is what I think. I think structure is so important. You cannot write a novel without knowing the grammar.
Correct.
Right? So it's very important. And when to use the grammar, that's when it comes with a constrained vocabulary. We're not constrained by it. If you know the structure, you know when not to use it also, right?
Right.
Right. So this is very important, and especially we must also understand that in organizations, I don't hire coaches only for talking to my vice president, senior vice presidents. When I have a coach who is helping my front level managers, right, new team leaders, new assistant managers, you new to the people role, sometimes the structure is not even important, that is completely necessary. And sometimes, and it goes, might be against the grain of coaching. I'm not a coach, full-time coach, but in coaching, it is often said that you should never tell, it's like a big, what do you say? You should never do it. You should always ask. But I think sometimes it is important to tell as well, with the structure, with the right knowledge, of course, because that sharing of knowledge also becomes important, especially at a certain level. So that is again where structure comes in a lot of handy. Your front level manager can take that structure and actually apply it in their work life, right? Otherwise, it becomes very, very generic and very esoteric sometimes, and they can't follow what the coach is saying.
Interesting, very interesting point. Okay, so before we move to the next question, I would just like to introduce you all to our next panelist for the week of for the next week, which is the 17th of April. At 4 p.m. we'll have the Coaches Corner. I would just share my screen with a bit of a detail about the panelist. So we would have Dr. C.H. Srinivas Chiravuri as our panelist. He's a learning leader with over 20 plus years of experience. I think around 25 years of experience. He coaches fairly senior leaders in the organization where he's working, and he would be able to bring in a lot of perspectives around the challenges that we would face when we are coaching senior leaders, and what are the things that one should keep in mind to get those breakthroughs. So hoping that you guys would be with me next week as well to join C.H. Srinivas when he's sharing his wisdom with us. All right. So let me stop the sharing. Yeah. All right. Any questions from the audience?
Aditya, I had one question. I just wanted to ask Dave.
Sure.
Since he's conducted so many, coaching programs in his career, how do you assess the effectiveness of a coaching program that has just been conducted in an organization? Do you follow any quantitative measures or qualitative measures and say, okay, fine, this has been successful, 50% successful or not? How do you really know that's been given the desired results?
I have a similar question what Amir is asking. Maybe Dave can answer both together. Did you also experience where coaches come back to you and say, this is not working for me, I'm not happy? Because we know that, any coaching program, because there's a lot of ask, right? I mean, it might even get into personal space. So a lot of trust has to be built. Not every coach will be comfortable going in that route, even if they have been volunteered by somebody else or they themselves volunteered. So have you also seen, where dropouts, or they're not happy with the program, or not so successful?
Great questions.
Great questions. Both are very, very interesting questions. So probably I'll go with what Amit asked first. Amit, again, very unconventional. I don't think, and I don't know if I'm the right thing to say that, but I don't think we should sometimes try to measure everything quantitatively. Especially as far as behavior is concerned, because here we are, when you have a coaching intervention, we are talking about working with some of our people leaders, sometimes very, very senior, and you are trying to say that at the end of the coaching session, what has improved? All right. Now, typically, what metrics do we look at? We look at productivity. We look at, might be attrition. We look at, if it's a very senior leader, market cap, and there's so many metrics you can look at. But to be honest, when I looked at many training or coaching programs that I had, it is a combination of many things, right? Just because a coaching program has been effective or not effective, it does not say something will improve. And this is proved by my data. I do not know what others have done it, but I did not find any direct correlation all the time, right? So it is hard for me to say that, or really quantitatively say that, well, because of this program, something has really improved. My bottom line has gotten better, we are earning more revenues on top line. But the way I see it, Amit, is have I been able to build a culture of coaching? I think something that you alluded to in the beginning. Have my conversations become more frequent? Have my feedback become more constructive? Am I giving more examples and not being judgmental while I'm giving that feedback? Has my quality of supervision is now based on empathy, right? Generally, what kind of people concerns do we have? These are the, you can say, intangible. I do not know, if somebody has figured it out, might be I can get some help, but I do not know how to quantify this, Amit, to be honest. But these exactly tells me that the mindset of the company is improving, the culture of the company is getting better, and eventually, things should get better. The reason I say eventually is because I don't see coaching as a start and the end of a program. Then it becomes a training program. In coaching, you're looking at not only a behavior change, but a mindset change, right? Behavior change becomes like a rubber band when you get a training and then somebody does something right for the first few days and it snaps back. Coaching is more permanent. And therefore, it takes sometimes years to get real benefits out of that. So I know I have given a very poor answer to your question, Amit, because I do not know. I just think that sometimes it is not possible to really quantify the effectiveness of a coaching program. At least I don't know if there is something existing. I don't know if I have answered Amit's question.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think
that's being very honest.
Yeah, that's being very honest.
Fantastic.
I think that's a great answer. You're coming from an HR head, so thank you very much.
I would like to add here, Debashish, rightly said, by you, but at the same time, see, the change which we are looking for from the participants, that change should be visible, okay, from the respective participant. And if there is no change, there's no point of investment from the organization also, because there is a ROI, and which is, you will agree that effectiveness is one of the key key element when you ask for a budget, when there is when there is an intervention out there. And of course it cannot be short term in coaching, but it's in the medium to long term. But yes, those changes should be visible, and that is what the effectiveness from coaching standpoint helps us to say, okay, that coaching is working out. So that's what I wanted to.
Yeah. No, totally. I agree with you, Amit. I was answering, I think Amit took the question to a different level. Amit is not saying that, well, I hire a coach and I want the coach to improve the emotional intelligence of my salespeople. Okay, I'm giving an example. Now I see that I do different EQ tests and whatnot. I see that the improvement has happened. The customers are happier than before, right? This is an effectiveness you can measure. But what Amit is saying is that does it really, the way I understood, does it really make more sales? Am I getting more revenue out of that? That is what your business leaders want. That is the real ROI, not the behavior change, but what is the impact on the top line and bottom line because of the intervention. Because behavior change is not enough unless it is quantifiable by something which is more tangible, right? That's the way I understood Amit, and that is the place that I have not figured out how to measure that. And that's the place where I answered this question from. But a great point, both of you. And Chidu had a question on, if I can rephrase, if I remember your question, has a coach come back and told me that
the coachee come back and tell you that it is not working for me, or yeah, on those lines, even during the program or at the end of the program?
In fact, interestingly, no. I had a coach who told me that, and I really appreciated that step from the coach. But I never had a coachee who told me this. Interestingly.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions from the participants? Okay, so we just have time enough for one last question, Debashish. In case nobody has any questions, I would go with it. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll go with it. So, any tips for coaches or the things that coaches should keep in mind when they're pitching to organizations for getting empaneled?
Yeah. So I'll be revealing some of my hiring secrets then. So, but let me do that. You are a dear friend. So, I have a simple, like an ABC formula, and it is an ABC formula actually, right? When I say, if I put myself on the shoes of a coach, because I'm not a coach per se, right? I'm a professional in that sense. So if I put myself a coach from the shoes of that coach, I think the three things they should do when they're trying to approach me for empanelment, approach me. I don't know what works for everybody else. It's for me only, right? You have to be authentic. This is so important. That's A for me, okay? You have to be very clear about what you can do, and more importantly, what you can't do, you cannot do. It's so important. What mistakes, I want to know what mistakes have you done as a coach? What has been your learnings? It is very important for us to be authentic. And sometimes I really appreciate people who say no to me, that this is something I've not done and I don't think I can do it, right? There are times when people said that, I know I've always gone back to them for things that they know how to do it, because I know here is a guy who's very genuine. So if you look at long-term, being authentic pays for doing a good business as well. So being authentic is so important for me, right? That's one. B for me stands for business, which is knowing the business. If you are trying to empanel with Berkadia, you are coming and talking to me, I expect you to know the business, what we do, how do we make money, what is our broad organization structure, what are our industry's challenges, demographics. I think Amit or Ahmed also talked about the intricacies of the organization, right? Demographics, right? All this knowledge and information will also help the coach in building the right interventions and also right commercials. If you can read my book of my financials, then you sense of what kind of budget I might have and I might not have. Of course, you can ask directly, but the awareness of this is very, very important, right? So knowing the business is very important when you're trying to come and doing an empanelment. The third thing is C for me is culture. I think you already spoken about it a lot. This is so important that we can't speak enough. This is probably the most important one, right? This is where I want that coach to do the complete homework before coming to me for the empanelment. Because my fear is that during coaching conversations, Aditya, things might get discussed that's contrary to our culture. And if that coach does not intervene at that very moment, does not say anything, that discussion might get validated as true. Right? That's the biggest risk. I know of many organizations where there is an intense and single-minded focus on performance of senior leaders, right? Where performance is measured by what impact you have done to the company's top line, bottom line, period. Right? You have reduced expenses, increased sales, you are a great leader. So in those organizations, if you have met your numbers, you do a great job. It does not matter, might be that whether you're toxic, if you're abrasive, you're disrespectful to your colleagues. But in Berkadia, this is simply not done. Okay, you do not meet your numbers, leaving dead bodies on the floor. So as a coach, you must have that perspective of the culture before coming to me and trying for the empowerment. These are my ABC things that I look at when I have my discussions on empowerments.
That's fantastic. You've simplified the entire process and took it to as elementary as ABC. So that's great. So we just are over 1 minute to 5 o'clock. I'm sensitive of everybody's time. So we would end the session over here. Fantastic points that you have talked about. We talked about the self-awareness of leaders, the structures, how the structures are used by coaches for and against them, how they work in different ways. The internal versus external, how it kind of plays around. And also the ABC that coaches should keep in mind when they're approaching organizations for getting empaneled as coaches. So fantastic conversations. I really loved it. I learned a lot. And
Same here. Great questions from the participants also, and great questions from you, Aditya.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you for having me again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Debashish. Thank you, Aditya.
Thanks a lot.
Great insights. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.